Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the Monday show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and our Newcastle United Aaron Stokes. Coming up on this week's show, we're going to look back on Newcastle's win over Fulham. It wasn't pretty, but the result is what matters. I'll ask the question, should United qualify for Europe this season? Is it as big or perhaps bigger achievement than the top four finish they secured last season? And we'll hype up Elliot Anderson, Bruno's 100th appearance for Newcastle. And there's always time for a rant on VAR. All this and plenty more coming up. Hit subscribe, like, follow, leave us a rating and review if you're on the podcast channel. Thank you, as always. Let's get on with the show. Aaron, you well?
Very well. Good weekend. Always is when Newcastle United win. But I think we'll all agree, and I think we'll all come to learn that in the next hour. It won't be positives about their flow and display. But look, ultimately 7 points from 9. You know, that Everton result doesn't seem as gloomy as it did on Friday. And yeah, good result for Newcastle.
Beating the gym, haven't you?
Beat the gym this weekend. Yeah, I'm surprised that you've mentioned that and you haven't mentioned our respective parkrun times on Saturday.
I just want to let everyone know that you wanted to let everyone know you beat the gym.
Yeah, and I thought, I was getting a very nice message from you saying, well done. But instead it was just you being a hater. And actually, I think we should be talking about what we did on Saturday. We did parkruns, me at Gosforth, you at Prudder, and there was some slightly different times, wasn't there, in the 5K?
You're catching, is it, weren't you?
I've got to say, you need to catch me.
The conditions weren't great. It was very boggy. It was more like an ice rink around the back of the step shills at Prudder, and it was you had to kind of concentrate on not falling. You see what I do? I go a steady pace on the first lap. The second pace, that's when I start to pick up, and right at the end is when I start sprinting. But I couldn't do it on Saturday because it was that slippy. I would have ended up in the time.
I really struggled with mine on Saturday. I think I set off too quickly, but still got a good time. I think I was a couple of seconds off my PB. So all in all, a good start to Saturday, and it was just made even better by a nice 1-0 win in the capital.
I think we're gonna have to give the people what they want, and at the end of the season, either you come over to Prudder, I'll come over to Townmoor, and we'll see who can win the race of Parkland. But yes, Newcastle won, Fulham 0. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't, well, it was effective, I guess some would say. As I said in last week's show, I've just kind of come to accept that Newcastle United are not going to be performing very well, but there's just something about them, and they continue to grind out these results. And actually, it's a sign of a good team when you are playing rubbish to keep getting the wins.
Yeah, look, I think on another day, on another week, Newcastle would really have, we'd be looking at a very different set of results for Newcastle United. The Newcastle United of old, or on another day, would not have come back against West Ham. They would have been royally beaten as they were on Boxing Day at St James's Park. On another day, I mean, the performance against Everton, I think, was okay, but, they've struggled to get over the line. And then I think on another day, Fulham could have been out of sight on that game Saturday. And we could be sat here talking about 1 point from 9 rather than 7. They've had to ride their luck a little bit in the last couple of days. They certainly did that in the first half on Saturday, but even though this squad is completely threadbare, that they've got no, reserves to come from the bench and make an impact, really. They're grinding out results with unflattering performances.
Shall we tell the listeners and viewers what you text me about half time? Would you want to let them know, or shall I read?
No, I'd like to hear you.
I've got it written down here. I've got it written down here, but I'm just going to make sure that I've got it word for word because I don't want to do you a disservice. But I think it sums up quite nicely probably the reaction of most people when they were watching Newcastle United or listening to Newcastle United against Fulham. And it is, and I quote, and if there are youngsters in the room, you might want to put your hands over their ears just for a brief second. There's your warning. Aaron texted me to say, "Are you watching this crock of shite?" That was at 4 minutes past 4. So we were into the second half. Yeah, by 4 minutes.
Oh, no, it was definitely half time when I texted you. It must have just been ran over.
Yeah. Okay. It was that bad?
The first half an hour was up there with the worst we've seen under Eddie Howe, and I think he would probably agree with that. They looked like a team that was playing in the middle of May. They were sat in 10th or 11th in the table, nothing to play for, and they looked like they were on the beach. They were so passive. Fulham were dominating possession. They were having more shots. They were having more touches. And Eddie Howe really needed to give them a rocket up the backside, which he did midway through the first half. But yeah, look, the result was brilliant, but let's not hide the first half performance. It was absolutely shocking for the first 30 minutes, I thought.
And why? Because it's not the first time we've seen this. I mean, when Newcastle United had all their options and they were properly flowing last season, and to be fair, at times this season, they start games so well. They press high, they've got the energy about them, they've got the intensity. But more often than not, we are seeing Newcastle United start slow. Fulham had the chances. Polina flashed 1 inches wide, and like you say, for the first, especially half an hour or so, Newcastle United were definitely second best. So, what is the reason?
Look, I don't know. At the very early stages of the game, I thought, okay, are they maybe trying to do what they did at Wolves at home, where they just sit back and soak up pressure and hit them on the counter? And maybe that was the plan, but it certainly wasn't being executed because Newcastle just couldn't get their foot on the ball. Every time they tried to break and get it off Fulham, they were losing it. They were sloppy. Fulham were really just keeping this pressure on. And on another day, if they'd taken the chances, could have been 2 or 3 up at half time. Newcastle were really lucky to go in at the break at 0-0, given that Fulham had 73% possession. They'd had 10 shots to Newcastle's 2. So, I stand by my text of the first half now. And I was saying that Newcastle did get a lot better towards the end of the first half. Eddie Howe gathered them on the touchline a couple of times when he could and was barking instructions at them, looked very, very angry. And they did start to pick up towards the end of the first half. Second half was much better. They finished the game really strongly. The subs came on and did a really good job. But on another day, it could have been curtains from half an hour in, I think.
We've got a few people watching live who agree with your comments about the first half performance, Aaron. Eddie Howe said that there were harsh words at half time. There's a quote here that I'm going to read out now from Eddie Howe. He said it was about switching the mindset, really. Like I said, in the opening period, we looked really lethargic and Fulham controlled things and played really well. Often the third game in the week is difficult, especially going away from home and not being able to rotate the players you want. We did well not to concede and had some luck doing it too. There were a few harsh words. The lads were harsh with themselves as well. And second half, we saw a completely different team that deserved to win in the end. What do you think those harsh words were? What did he say to the team at half time?
Oh, it's hard to imagine what a harsh Eddie Howe words would be, given that he very rarely loses his cool in front of us or out in public. Look, it was clear something needed to change. And I think, a couple of players have came out and said really similar things in the aftermath and said, look, we had to sort of look internally at ourselves at half time and make a change. And they did. They came out much better. They looked a lot less lethargic. They controlled a lot more of the game. Anthony Gordon was the real spearhead of that as well. He just picked the ball up a lot of these times, first half and second half, and just tried to carry the full team forward. He was taking shots from distance to try and make stuff happen. So yeah, I think he was a real shining light. And look, I think Eddie Howe's right. 3 games in 7 days, even at the best of times, isn't great. It's even worse when you've got players running on empty who shouldn't be playing, which we saw with Joe Willock going off. We saw again with Sean Longstaff, who just looks like his tank's empty. And now I think they'll all be thankful for 7 days rest.
But this is the business end of the season, and there is no rest, is it? These performances and results are really important to what Newcastle United can achieve this season. We'll get onto the league table in a bit. But you thought, Aaron, that actually the first change in wind in the first half maybe came around about 22 minutes when Martin Dubravka first went down injured. Marco Silva, the Fulham boss, claims that Newcastle United planned this kind of injury, this kind of disruption in place, so he could get his team on the touchline and get a few instructions out. Do you think it's that deep?
Gotta watch what I say here because I don't want to slander Eddie. Look, Dubravka goes down 22 minutes in, needs treatment off the physios, and all of a sudden you see Eddie Howe absolutely, he's not pulling any punches on the touchline. He looks really visibly angry with what he's seen. And you see Newcastle, get a little bit better after that. Clearly, whatever he'd said had worked. Now, Dubravka goes down again soon after, and Howe again uses it as the opportunity to speak to some people. The second time he did collide with Muniz, the striker. Maybe there was a bit of truth in that one. But we saw it a lot last season, didn't we, with Nick Pope going down, and we sort of thought, is he really injured?
But that's what's been missing, hasn't it? And I'm not just talking about these injuries, which some say aren't injuries, but it's just the kind of, and another bad word coming up here, so I do apologize, it's that kind of shithousery that made Newcastle so hard to beat last season, whether it was, dropping the ball when they were going for a throw, or whether it was player going down, allowing Eddie Howe to give some instructions out. That's been missing, and Newcastle United need to get that nasty streak back where they're only caring about themselves, and they need to gain every little advantage, especially in the remaining games in the road for Europe.
100%, and it was the perfect time to do it as well because Newcastle really had spent the first 22 minutes hardly getting out their own half. Fulham were really piling the pressure on. And Marco Silva's right to feel annoyed because actually his team were on the top in a really good rhythm. They were flowing, they were looking like they were going to score the opening goal in a matter of minutes. And all of a sudden, that momentum's just completely killed dead. Newcastle have a chance to regroup, replenish. Howe gets the chance to really, give them more some instructions. And it clearly worked because they looked a lot more settled towards the back end of that first half.
Roger says the last time we had 7 or even 8 days break, Aaron, did we not look a bit rubbish?
We did, yeah. It was after the winter break, wasn't it, in Dubai a couple of weeks ago? We came back and said that they looked really shattered. So, look, there's absolutely no chance they can be tired Saturday, given the magnitude of the game against a team who are going toe-to-toe for them with a European spot. So hopefully, this time around it's different.
For all, Newcastle were pretty pants in the first half. They did have chances. Gordon flashed a couple wide. Isaac was put through and just had the touch let him down. So they're still creating chances, even though their performance as a whole are pretty shocking.
Yeah, they did get a lot better towards the back end of the second half, mainly through Anthony Gordon. He was picking the ball up and actually making things happen. They were finding him a lot more often. He had a couple of really good chances. As you say, Isaac, should have done better with his touch. And I think, that's not just on Saturday. We've seen that from Anthony Gordon the last couple of weeks. He's been the man to drive them forward. Usually it's Bruno, usually it's Isaac. I think you go back to that West Ham game a week ago and Gordon was really the threat throughout.
He's absolutely fantastic, isn't he? Yeah. He is the outlet. He's the man who has the ball and he just wants to run with it. And then when he hasn't got the ball, he's very clever in creating space for others. He can get back. He can help defensively. And I think Isaac must just love having someone like Gordon out there on the flank who he can interchange with as well and just offers that creative spark, but just always wants to create some, always wants to go forward. He's absolutely brilliant.
He looks like he's loving his football at the minute. He'll have hated sitting out on Saturday because he won't want this run to end of really solid performances. And I think Newcastle did really miss him at times on Thursday, and I thought he was the real bright light for the majority of the game on Saturday as well.
Yeah, there was the effort that he dragged wide when he did the scissors, and then he went left, right, and then turned the defender. It was absolutely brilliant. He's just a player full of confidence, and every time he gets the ball, he looks like he's going to create something.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think of how much he's had to play this season, given injuries, especially Harvey Barnes, it's nobody could blame him if he was running empty, but he just looks like, fresh as a daisy every time he comes out. And I think that's what the confidence will have done to him. It will be helping him get through this, massive run of games. Hopefully he feels a lot better for sitting out on Thursday as well, on Tuesday, against his old team. And hopefully he can continue that for the end of the season. And then, I mean, what do we want in the summer? Do we want him on the plane for the Euros, or do we want him on the beach?
I think so. I think that experience would be very worthwhile. I think you'll probably get in the squad. I'm not sure he'll play too many minutes, but I think you definitely want your best players in the squad.
Just to play devil's advocate, he obviously joined Newcastle last January, played on and off the back end of the season, goes to the under-21 Euros, has a fantastic tournament, wins player of the tournament, then doesn't take a holiday because he comes straight back because he wants to come back and play for Eddie Howe in pre-season. He's played, a lot of games, probably in the top 5, appearance makers this season. Do you not just think, just give him a summer off?
Yeah, but I think his reward for doing so well is a place in that England squad. And as I say, he probably won't play that often in the tournament. What he will get is that experience, and it'll make him a better player for a training with the best players in this country. Yeah, I mean, look, you want him in that squad, don't you? You don't? You want him on a beach somewhere?
I would love to see him in the England squad because I think personally, as you say, he deserves it. It's his reward for good form. But I also think I don't think I'm going to lose any sleep or shed any tears if he's left out and he gets a summer of rest and vacation. All I'm saying is if he goes away with England and in the first game he limps off, and we're just thinking,
don't say that. Have some
I'm a realist.
Optimism.
And if that happens, then we're all going to be saying, oh, he should have been left at home.
It's a sign of how well Newcastle United are doing if their players are getting called up for the big tournaments.
Look, personally, for him, he does deserve it. I think on merit, on form this season, especially given what he did at the Euros last summer for the youngsters, he deserves a place in the squad. All I'm saying is he's had a lot of games. He's young. We've seen what injuries can happen to some young players in this squad this season. Would it be the worst thing in the world if he doesn't get picked?
Sean watching live says seeing Newcastle United players getting international caps is important for recruitment.
Very good point.
So it sells the move to Newcastle to future wannabe international players. Martin Dubravka, clean sheet. He'll be over the moon with that, wouldn't he? He had some important saves to make as well.
Yeah, he really did play well. And it's good for Dubravka because, as you say, he's had a shaky period. He hasn't kept too many clean sheets. A little bit of criticism levelled at him in the last couple of weeks. I thought he was really superb. And we've seen those type of performances in flashes since he came back into the team in December. He seems to have a really good game and then he'll drop off for a couple. But I thought he was superb. Fulham were really putting the pressure on in that first half, and he did very, very well to keep them out. He also had a huge save in the second half from Pereira, which was flying at the bottom corner, which kept Newcastle in the game when it was 0-0. Really, really good to see.
Yeah, and that'll do, as we say, a world of good to his confidence. And let's talk about then, first off, the Dan Burn goal. Well, the Fabian Schär goal that was ruled out with Dan Burn adjudged to have committed a foul. Aaron's side there because, of course, VAR was the reason it was ruled out. We've watched it a few times in the office today, and I know Eddie Howe said he expected it to go to VAR, but then he expected it to be the goal to be awarded. He didn't expect it to be choked off. I watched that, and I think in today's football, where contact is pretty much minimal, I'm not too surprised that's been ruled out. I mean, I hate that element of the game.
Should it have been given, though?
If we're talking about the consistency of today's football, Premier League football, then no. Because that's what I've come to expect of top flight football. You can't lead with your arm like that. You can't be that physical in the air. The defender has always got...
The ball's gone.
I know that. And look, I get that. But then could you argue the Paul Dummett foul against Calvert-Lewin is the same? The ball's over the top of Lewin. He's never getting there. Dubravka's getting there. Like, where's the line drawn? But I'm not saying I agree with it. But what I'm saying is what we see with VAR, where the defender always gets the benefit of the doubt for the minimal of touches by the attacker. That's always going to be ruled out, in my opinion.
But look, I get where you're coming from, but ultimately, Anthony Gordon puts that cross in, and Calvin Bassey is never getting to that ball. He's diving backwards to try head it. The ball has gone over him. He's not getting it. He's never getting it. Whether Burn has stood there or whether he stood at the other end of the pitch, Calvin Bassey is never getting his head on it because the ball's already gone past him when Burn clatters him. No Fulham players appeal for it. Calvin Bassey doesn't appeal for it. The linesman doesn't give it. The referee doesn't give it. Why on earth is VAR then saying, oh, hang on, you need to have a look at this? And why isn't someone in that VAR for saying the ball's gone? It's not a foul. He's not affecting Calvin Bassey jumping for that header. As soon as Sam Allison, the referee, gets told to go to the monitor, you know what's coming. And I actually think Eddie Howe, he was pretty stinging after the game when he spoke about it and said he wanted the referee to be strong. But how many times have we said that this season? Referees go to the monitor and they don't want to stick to their on-field decision, even though they've made it in real time. And yeah, look, if that had ended up costing Newcastle, then I would be even more livid than I am now.
If that's the other way around, though, and it's Fabian Schär on the end of a pretty strong arm from a Fulham attacker, and the ball ends up in the back of the net, wonderful finish. Are we claiming blue murder here? Are we saying that should definitely be a foul?
No, I don't think so. And I generally don't think I'm saying this with any bias. I didn't think it was a foul. If it had been a second or two earlier and Calvin Bassey was jumping for the ball and gonna head it and Burn comes into him, then I think fair play, that's a foul. But Bassey was never getting there. And I think that's what VAR should have looked at. It didn't. Schär's goals ruled off. Thankfully, it doesn't affect the game because Bruno scores 2 minutes later. But I mean, I never thought I'd get to this stage ever. But I am starting to now turn towards the notion of just get rid of it all. Just
scrap it.
Just scrap the lot, because then even if the referees are absolutely terrible and they're making mistakes in every game, at least they make mistakes for everyone. Because, how many times, and just this weekend, how many times did we see the technology used in such a horrendous way?
Yeah, and we've got a few examples. I say I don't agree that goal should have been ruled out, but in the context of what we know the Premier League to be, I say I'm not surprised. I mean, football should be a physical sport, but for whatever reason, they don't want that. Yeah, we've got a few comments on the Fabian Schär goal that was ruled out. Johnny says, I think if Burns scores from the header, it isn't ruled out as a foul, but because it's sort of an off-the-ball foul, they may have stopped him getting back on the line. They have disallowed it. He says it's a weird one. And the other big... they're not even controversies either, because they're just shocking decisions this week to do with VAR. Kind of also affect Newcastle in the chase for you. So you have the one. We'll start with James Maddison first, against Spurs. Against who was it against? Nottingham Forest. What we'll do is we'll start with the Wolves one, because I didn't actually think it was going to be a worse decision than the one we saw in the Wolves West Ham game, but then I saw the Maddison one and I was handed something that I thought was definitely worse. So Wolves, Kilman's got a late header. It's ruled out because Tawanda Chua is deemed to be blocking West Ham's keeper Fabianski on the line while offside. Now, I don't think there's any question that he is in an offside position, but Kilman's got the header so right that it's so far away from Fabianski. He's never reaching it, whether there's a player in front of him in an on or offside position. No one appeals either again, and yet that's been ruled out. And that is a huge win for West Ham. Points dropped for Wolves, and it does impact Newcastle United. But just in terms of the actual passage of play, I just don't understand how that's been disallowed.
Again, just to essentially say what you were saying about the Fulham goal, I think in today's football you can counter-expect that, because technically they'll turn around and say, look, the rules were he was in the keeper's eye line, but surely some common sense has to be applied here. Lucas Fabianski is never getting at that ball, whether the defender's there or not. The linesman clearly will have seen that the Wolves player's offside and hasn't given it. The referee on field has not given it. And I don't think the Bassey one and the Wolves one were really clear and obvious errors, which is what VAR was brought in to clear up. Instead, we're having games refereed from 100 miles down the road. Yeah, like I say, I'm slowly turning against it. I never thought I would.
And then on to James Maddison, Nottingham Forest versus Spurs. And I had to re-watch this replay 3 or 4 times because I couldn't quite understand what I had. So I saw someone tweeted out, and I was like, all right, that's quite interesting. And then I watched it, and it wasn't like the replay of the incident. It was like in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So then you zoom in, you think he has actually leathered him in the midriff there, and they've checked it, and the referee on the pitch has been told there's no case to answer for.
Well, this is the thing.
What on earth are they watching?
If the other two weren't clear and obvious errors, then this absolutely was. How on earth if the referees missed that, fair enough, but how on earth can officials be watching that on a replay over and over and say no case to deal with? And that one has a double impact for Newcastle, because one, Spurs are obviously next up, and Maddison would have been banned, and also because of the race for Europe. So look, yeah, I couldn't believe that Newcastle's ruled out goal would actually be the third worst VAR decision of the weekend.
Which one's the worst?
I think Maddison's the worst, then I think it's Wolves, and then I think it's Newcastle.
I just think that VAR's there to protect referees in the case of the Maddison incident, where he's likely to miss it in real time because the ball's away.
Mm-hmm.
He's concentrating on where the ball is. He's not looking away from. He's not looking at that incident. That's what VAR's there for. It's meant to protect the referee, and all it's done is it's shone the light on the referee because they've got it wrong.
Well, this is the thing. A couple of days ago, we were all saying, that Paul Dummett foul 5 years ago probably doesn't get pulled back because the referees missed it and there's no VAR to then go and correct it. That James Maddison one also would have got, let off 5 years ago. In today's game, that shouldn't be getting away with it. How on earth are players punching other players in the stomach and then VAR
Didn't
looking
even
at
get
it
a
and saying,
booking for it, did he?
honestly,
Well, what have they seen there? And you are right. The bigger impact from a Newcastle point of view on these two instances, and Eddie Howe won't be losing any sleep over it because he'll just be wanting to impact what he can impact. But it does have a potential huge impact on what they can achieve this season, because that race for Europe is so tight. You know, if Madison's not available for Saturday's game, it's at James's Park. Newcastle have an advantage there. If Forest go on to beat Spurs, Spurs have dropped point. I mean, catching Spurs is going to be quite something.
Yeah.
But the point being, Newcastle United have been impacted by two bizarre results that VAR should have cleared up.
Yeah, the only silver lining is that Newcastle went on to win the game at Fulham, because I think if we'd added a third element in there, that they'd also been denied a win because of VAR at Craven Cottage, then I think we'd all be, a lot more angry.
It's just so annoying though, because the technology is fantastic. Like, there's not an issue with the technology; it's the application of the rules.
It feels like the Premier League is the only league in the world not getting this technology right. It feels like every other league has mastered it, and how can you blame them? We've had it 4 or 5 seasons now. How the standard of officiating in this country is terrible, which is why I've always wanted VAR to stay, because you need them to have these mistakes corrected because they're that frequent.
But the same terrible referees
exactly
are
then
watching
going
the screen.
and what hope do we have when refs are making mistakes on the pitch and they're not being rectified off the pitch, which is what we saw on a couple of occasions.
It's just so simple though. It's not like it's complicated. Has James Madison punched the Forest player? Yes. Should he be sent off? Yes. Like, what on earth have they watched? It's like someone's gone and made a brew while that replay's gone over and he's come back and panicked and gone, oh, no, nothing to see here, and then just sent it back.
Well, the audio from the Luis Diaz disallowed goal came up my Twitter again.
I cannot wait for the audio for this one.
And you could hear how confused they all were. Everyone talking over each other. They were using phrases like "didn't hear." I mean, that should have really been cleared up by him just saying he's offside, rather than correct call on field. I feel like you, because usually you're the one sat here getting irate. But I honestly
banging on about this for months and months and months, and Howard Webb was meant to come in and fix the issue. If anything, it's getting worse with every passing weekend, and when there's so much riding on it, it just infuriates you even more.
But look, let's take a deep breath.
Newcastle won.
2 minutes later, Bruno scores, and thankfully, Fabian Schär's disallowed goal doesn't count.
His 100th appearance for Newcastle. And just to reaffirm how important he is to Newcastle United, 7 games in which he's missed, they haven't managed to win a single game. He is so important. He didn't have his best game by any stretch of the imagination. I think defensively, he was a little bit lackadaisical. But all that matters is that he grabbed the goal, because when you are playing poorly as a team, you need your best players, even if they're having an off day, to pull you through at the business end of the season when results matter over performances, and Bruno did that.
Yeah, 100%. Popped up a big time with a big goal. He hasn't found the net too often this season, but that'll be a huge goal for the how the season plays out from here on in. Didn't have his best performance, but I thought second half he was good. He was again trying to make things happen, which we've seen so often this season. Took his finish really well. Again, didn't jump into the stand, so avoids a booking again. And of course, it means that we got to hear from him at the end, full time, where he said that he wants to stay. And I think it's quite telling the last couple of days. There's been a lot of talk around Alexander Isak, Arsenal, Tottenham, totally interested. A lot of talk about Bruno and will Newcastle be able to hold on to him if they don't get Europe? I think that's still a question. That question still remains. I think it's good that we've had, in the space of 4 days, Isak and Bruno both coming out and saying, look, we want to play for this club. You're wincing there.
I mean, it is good if you take it at face value, and I'm not saying for a moment that either of them are lying, but the point being, if Real Madrid or Barcelona go knocking on the door, it's hard to turn them down if you're any player, right?
Do you not think it just calms everyone down a little bit? It's just, even if it's just for a couple of months, the focus goes back to the football and
for a degree. But then with every passing performance in which they do really well, and again, Isak, didn't really do too much on Saturday, and Bruno got the winning goal, so he grabs the headlines. Them words are quickly going to be eroded away, because the links to top teams in Europe will just accelerate. And I mean, do you think Bruno's development and rise to the top has outpaced Newcastle's, and that in itself is a danger for maybe not this summer, but it puts pressure on Newcastle to get Champions League football back for the season after the next.
Look, I don't even think that applies to Bruno. To answer your question, yeah, I do think he's outgrown Newcastle in terms of how good he's got, and Newcastle have obviously stuttered. But I think, we knew since the takeover, since all these big players arrived, the pressure that it puts on Howe and the owners to keep delivering season on season. Because if you don't, then as you say, if Newcastle somehow stumble and miss out on Europe altogether this season, it's a lot easier said than done to say, I'm going to stay when, as you say, Madrid or Barca or Arsenal or City, who can offer Champions League football, come knocking. I think, and again, maybe I'm just being naive and glass half full. I think if Newcastle reach Europe this season, whether that's Conference League or whatever, I think that's enough to keep them. I think then the questions start being asked if they finish 9th or 10th. I still think they've probably got enough to keep these players for at least another season, but those questions will start to emerge again as to whether, the project is still appealing enough.
I think one thing in Newcastle United's favour is the emotional pull.
Yeah.
I think being allowed to become a proper legend at a club is something Bruno really wants to be. And if you go to a big club like Barcelona and Real Madrid, it's all about the club, and you've got so many players around you who are just bigger in name and stature and reputation and in every way imaginable. Whereas here, Bruno's top of the tree.
Yeah.
And if he lifts a cup with Newcastle United, he's going down in history. He's already a legend in many people's eyes. But if he achieves something here in terms of silverware, I think that appeals to him. And I think he will know that it doesn't get much better in terms of admiration than what you get here at Newcastle United. And it's much, much different to how the fans see you, maybe even pressure to a degree when you go and join a Real Madrid or Barcelona.
Yeah, and look, Bruno always says that, doesn't he? He always comes out and say, I've never felt as loved as I do at Newcastle. And as you say, it's hard to imagine another club, especially in Europe, treating them the way that, Newcastle United supporters do. Again, just echoing what we said on last week's podcast, if you could only keep one of them, I think Isak's the one you've got to try and hold on to. I had a couple of texts from friends last week asking if you were okay, saying that you'd take 80 million for Isak last week. They thought you were potentially suffering from a head injury. But look, the one good thing about, and I don't mean this is a good thing, but Newcastle now have sort of ensured themselves that if Bruno goes, they're going to get a good chunk of money. You'd imagine that if Alexander Isak says, look, I want to go, they're going to get a substantial profit on what they made for him. Gone are the days of selling, your best players for peanuts. That's the only silver lining, really, I think. But hopefully, finish the season strongly, get a European finish, and then build on it next season.
Well, we've got Eddie Howe is consistently asked about Bruno's future, and what I've noticed in recent months is that he is he's replying more to these stories of exits and rumours, and he's bigging them up, which probably isn't the best thing in the world, because other teams that want him will say that's exactly why we want him. But Eddie Howe asked about Bruno's future after the win at Fulham. He said, no, I wouldn't say that as a conversation we were having, so i.e. Bruno leaving. He's got a long contract. He signed a new deal this season. When a player does that, he commits himself to you for a number of years. Of course, in the modern game, things can change, but he looks happy. I see a player happy in the group on the training pitch, off the pitch as well. So I would hope we can do enough to keep him here. What do you read into those comments? Me personally, it's Eddie Howe saying, what a player, I want to keep him. Also, just laying the groundwork slightly, just in case it does deviate and he ends up leaving in the summer. But also, I think there's an admittance there, a realization that it isn't as simple as saying, right, there we go, end of the season, done and dusted, see you in August, Bruno, because he knows there's going to have to be a conversation, I think, at some point in the summer before pre-season where, Bruno maybe does sit down and says, look, there's interest. What are we going to achieve in the season?
Yeah, look, I think, the start of that quote there from Howe talking about how he's just signed a contract and that means he's committed for a number of years. How many times over the years have we seen players sign new deals only for 6 months later to leave? I'm pretty sure Declan Rice signed a pretty hefty West Ham deal about a year before he left for Arsenal. So I don't think it means that they're going to keep him 100%, but I think it certainly, as I said, means that they've at least got that insurance of the release clause and they're not going to, be shortchanged should he go.
One way to keep him is obviously by getting into Europe this season, but also
that's the main thing, surely.
the investment in the summer. Signing top quality players. I mean, the dream signing would be Lucas Paqueta from West Ham. I think if Newcastle signed him, that Bruno would be here for life. But I mean, obviously they're not going to do that. But a lot does also depend on who they do bring in the summer, because a bit like when Anson Maxim was here and he was the star man and he talked about ambition and we need to see it, etc., etc. Bruno will also want to see that. And of course, they're totally different levels now from where we were under Mike Ashley to where we are here under the current owners. But he will want to see top quality players arrive this summer.
Look, I think all of them will. I think Isak and Botman and Gordon will also want that, but Bruno certainly. And hopefully with these, Premier League changes that are set to come in the summer, hopefully the purse strings can be loosened a little bit and Newcastle can have a little bit more freedom than they did earlier this season. Because they haven't lacked ambition with their signings. People will talk about last summer, but I actually think on the face of it, I know the season hasn't gone exactly well for all four, but on paper, 4 very good signings. Certainly, Sandro Tonali was a big statement signing, managing to pull him away from AC Milan. It's that type of ambition you need going forward. It's just whether Newcastle are actually going to be allowed to spend that type of money again, given the current rules.
Well, Lewis Hall looks like a brilliant signing now, doesn't he?
Here we are.
We've also got breaking news that Everton have been docked 2 further points for the rules they've broken in the Premier League, which...
What a joke, honestly.
In terms of just what, they shouldn't be punished?
How on earth can a club be docked 4 points, mid-season, then appeal it, then have them revoked, and then have a second charge brought on? And I mean, this should all either have been done in the summer or at the end of the season. I just think it's a joke. But
well, you have other teams still under investigation.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, maybe this should have all been done during the summer or off season to allow the focus to be on the pitch. But yeah, we've got a few people in the comments here. We've got YI Man asking, do you think the Europa League would be a big enough pull?
Yeah, definitely. I think look, it's not the bright lights of the Champions League, which players love to play in, but I think short term, definitely. I mean, look at Liverpool last season, finishing the Europa League. They didn't get Champions League football. They went out and signed, the likes of Dominic Szoboszlai from Leipzig. So you've got, yes, it's not the Champions League, which is the be all and end all in a lot of players' eyes. But look, it's enough. You just got to look at the last 8 of the Europa League this season. Some massive teams in there, which prove it's not to be sniffed at all.
Yeah, I definitely want European football, no matter what it is. I know a lot of people are saying, well, actually, no European football, have a free shot at the league next season.
No.
It's got to be European football, hasn't it?
Yeah, look, as I've said a lot on this podcast, give me the Conference League. I'd happily take it. Europa League would be great as well.
Are you confident of getting that through expenses?
Oh, I think there'd be some crunch talks with the bosses. But yeah, look... None of this avoiding Europe. Not a chance. Why on earth would we want a season without European football if it's there to be taken? And I think based on the results of the last week, I think Newcastle will get it. I mean, now, never mind the Conference League, Europa League is fully back on the table, given that results have gone their way in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, 100%. Got to be Europe.
Well, the key question that I was going to ask you today is, if Newcastle qualified for Europe, given all their injuries, alongside the Sandro Tonali ban, would it be a bigger achievement than last season's top 4 finish? Now, I put this out this morning on Twitter, and the majority of people have agreed. Ian saying absolutely. Roy saying I would have to say yes from a sentimental standpoint, but he actually says realistically it isn't. Glenn saying it would be a fabulous achievement, but not bigger, no. Actually, I did say a lot of people agreed. Scrolling down, actually, not many people have agreed. Actually, maybe this is just the algorithm of Twitter. So I'll just read through some of the responses. Then Dan Snowden saying no, it'll be enough for Howe to stay on. Bill says no, it would be a good effort though. The level of performance has understandably dropped considerably. We've got Kelly saying no, last season was the best in years, a cup final and top 4. Get the injuries have been horrendous and screw the season, but this season can't be a big achievement in my opinion. David says no, Premier League is pretty weak at the moment. Jamie though says I think so. Callum says I don't think it would be a bigger achievement personally. I think it would be a great result overall and a brilliant season to finish. Amar says that's a tough call. Last season was incredible, but if we qualify for Europe, despite the injuries in Tonali Ban, for me, it would be bigger, as it's a true testament to the team's resilience and spirit. These stances, good question. Thank you very much. I'd say no, even though he's done a remarkable job. Dean says last season would be bigger because no club with that budget should have been in trouble in the top four. And Roddy says, just my opinion, but I'd say fourth in the cup final is better than sixth, and no cup final based on facts, though. So I initially said everyone was in agreement. They are in agreement. They're in agreement that it isn't a bigger achievement. I think, look, when you consider what they've been through, the injuries alone are just, it's still hard to get your head around just what they've suffered. And Joe Willock's gone off as well against Fulham. We're waiting to see what the crack is there. But I mean, you wouldn't be surprised in picking up another injury against Spurs, because it just seems to be happening every single week. And you think, how many more injuries can they handle? And still to be within a shout of qualifying for the Europa League, let alone the Europa Conference, it is a massive achievement. And I think, look,
it's a miracle.
It's a miracle. If you'd asked people at the start of the season and said, and asked that question, they would have said, what are you on about? Some might have even said, surely Eddie Howe couldn't even possibly still be in a job if that was the case. But I think given the context of the season, I think it is. I think it potentially is a bigger achievement just because of all the elements of play. No?
It's not. If Newcastle get Europe this season, it's a astonishing, fantastic achievement. It is a miracle, given that everything's been thrown at them. But come on, last season, breaking into the top four the first time of
Was it a miracle?
No, I don't think so.
So what better's a miracle then? Because surely a miracle is an achievement, right? Big achievement.
No, last season was a much better achievement. Finishing in the top four against all odds so early in the journey, cup final. Yeah, I mean, come on, it would be a fantastic achievement. It would be a surprising achievement, but last season was bigger.
Graham says, before the Public Investment Fund came in, Newcastle had 2 top half finishes. So now he's one happy Magpie. And that's the other thing, the small steps. And this is what the owners always said. It was going to be kind of baby steps. And I guess getting the top 4 is obviously it's accelerated things. And there's always that kind of question whether Eddie Howe was a victim of his own success, because it did change expectations. It's maybe set the bar slightly too high, given the squad depth, given the ability in the squad, all fantastic characters. But I think we can all agree they're not a top 4 side on paper. You've got some brilliant players, but there is a lot of work to be done to get them to an established top 4 side year after year. But like I said, just given everything they've been through, to get European football, it would be a miracle. And in my opinion, it would be a bigger achievement based on all those elements of play. But we'll agree to disagree.
Not like us to disagree.
No,
with it.
It's not. Europa League or Europa Conference? I mean, look, Man United look absolutely terrible, don't they? Is that the aim? Are you chasing down Manchester United, or are you just chasing down?
Oh, in terms of what would be my preference, or
look, I think what can Newcastle achieve?
Oh, look, I think now after the results that they've picked up in the last 7 days, coupled with the results that have gone in their favour elsewhere, the Europa League now should be the aim. You've got 7 games left. Yes, West Ham and Man U have both got games in hand on you believe, or Man United at least do. You've got to be in for the Europa League. I think my preference would be the Europa League, given the calibre of teams in there and the fact that you're going to attract more players than you are in the Conference League. But just saying that,
I've got the league table here.
Yeah, so
West Ham played 32, Man United 31, Newcastle 31. Then you're looking at Villa, 11 points ahead of Manchester United, played 32. So I mean, look, you can discount, I think, anything from 5th or above.
So I mean, potentially 7th this season if the FA Cup win goes in Newcastle's favour and England get a top 5 Champions League spot. The Conference League could be 8th place. 6th or 7th being the Europa League. If that's the case, I mean, Europa League's got to be the aim, surely.
But then, you said right at the start of the show, the point against Everton doesn't look too bad now. Of course, look, what's it, 7 points on possible 9 is not a bad tally. But when you look at that, Newcastle United 47, West Ham 48, Man United 49. Those 2 points there, Newcastle would be 6th because of the goal difference.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. It's still a 2 points drop, but if they'd gone and lost to Fulham, I think we'd be looking back at that Everton result and going, what a huge wasted opportunity. But now things look a little bit rosier.
Well, they've unbeaten quite a few games and then back at home against Spurs. So you expect them to give a good account of themselves there. Spurs concede goals. It is in Newcastle's hands.
Yeah, the only two positives for the Conference League over the Europa League is, one, Newcastle would probably go into the competition favourites, if not, second or third favourite, real chance of actually winning it. And secondly, you would get some really obscure teams, some great away days. Give me an Azerbaijan away day any day. But I think if I had to choose, then it would definitely be to finish in the Europa League.
Yeah, I'd take Europa League as well. Johnny says in isolation, finishing fourth is better than eighth. I get the nuance, but come on. Roger says getting top four has accelerated the FA to drum up more rules to try and slow us down, in his opinion. Gary says there is a possibility Villa could drop like a stone Spurs too. I think that is wishful thinking, Gary, but he says we just need to focus on our games, play everyone like a cup final, and we can qualify for you. That is definitely the sentiments. You wanted to have a word about Fabian Schär?
Really, really good on Saturday again.
Minus the little
miss kick.
He's got one of them in every 90 minutes, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So we've come to accept this.
And it's fascinating actually to see how well him and Byrne play. It looks like they've been playing together for the last 2 years. They look so good. Dan Byrne looks so assured at centre back. And you're just thinking, could we have tried this 18 months ago? But
we were calling this. We were calling for it because you always knew when he went into centre back, the lack of pace wouldn't be so critical anymore. And what would show and has shown is Dan Byrne's dominance in the air. And that also protects Fabian Schär, who has got a mistake in him, who's not the quickest either. Those two together.
They look really good together. And I think they look really, really good on Saturday.
Yeah, so Fabian Schär won 11 out of 13 duels, 6 out of 8 on the ground, and 5 out of 5 in the air. Them two have really got aerial dominance, haven't they?
Yeah, there was a moment he went down in the first half, clutching his chest, and I just thought, no, finally the man who can overcome any injury. He's been Newcastle's permanent fixture.
The amount of times he hits the turf in a game going down. I mean,
it's like the Terminator, just gets straight back up.
Yeah, but if you had £1 for every time he went down injured, Newcastle could probably afford another centre back. But yeah, good to see him get up in another solid performance. In terms of summer additions, do you think Byrne and Schär's partnership last couple of games is it good enough that Newcastle don't have centre back as a priority?
No, centre back is still a priority. But again, it's and I think we touched this on a recent episode. I think what the next 7 days, and I know I'm getting the next 7 games. Sorry, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself. What it might do is it might make Eddie Howe think, okay, maybe let's move Dan Byrne back into being a centre back predominantly. Yes, he can still play left back. Let's have him as third or fourth choice centre back. We get a really good centre back in, but we also go out and splash on a left back if we can.
Lewis Hall not going to be the number 1 left back?
Well, look, I mean, I would be quite happy with Lewis Hall getting a good run of games, but I don't think Eddie Howe sees him as Newcastle's out and out left back yet, and that's understandable. He's only, he's still a teenager. They've got time on his side, but I think Newcastle have been really crying out for a top class, world class left back for a lot of seasons. The same as I think they need on the right midfield, despite the fact that Yankuba Minter looks like he's really in his stripes out in Feyenoord. But centre back has got to be a priority. You've got to get at least 1, if not 2, in the summer, given the length of injuries to Botman and Lascelles.
Anyone that springs to mind? I mean, Tosun, Fulham free transfer. We spoke about Lloyd Kelly last week, free transfer.
Yeah, look, if you can get those 2 in on a free, then I don't think I would turn my nose up at that, and I don't think Farn should either. But I think, you need someone who's going to cost you a lot of money. You need someone who's been there, done it. They've obviously been a lot of links to players in Portugal. 2 at Lisbon in the form of Gonzalo Inacio and Usman Diamande. Both look very, very decent. Are going to cost you a lot of money, though. So, again, it just depends how much Newcastle have got to spend in the summer.
They are going to have to be clever, aren't they, with the money? And that's why the lines, because of Kelly and Tosun, come into it, because they'll have to pay a sign-on for a fee, maybe a big wage. But
and also, just to throw a little left field shout out, because fans turned their nose up at him when he was first linked, but I tell you what, missing out on Nathan Ake looks like a big mistake because he's been fantastic for City this season. And if he continues to drop down the pecking order, I think if they can manage to get him for 20, 30 million, that'll be a really good deal.
I think you're crossing everything there. 20, 30 million.
Yeah.
I think City will want a lot more than that.
He's getting on now, He's getting on.
Getting on, how old is he?
I don't know.
I reckon he's still younger than you, right?
No, I reckon he's going to be.
I reckon he's younger.
29?
28.
29.
29, that's
29 last month.
Plenty of years ahead of him. Johnny says they need a centre-back with pace. It would solve many problems.
Yeah, it would. The one thing that full back line is missing, and you see it so often, is they've got very little pace, any of them.
We've seen Robertson, Fabian Schär would run through walls for Newcastle United. We've got Wireman saying, look at the fixtures, we can finish above West Ham. Man United have got better fixtures than Chelsea. Haven't got bad fixtures, so we'll be tough.
Chelsea.
We could go to 7th. We need to win at least 3 games. Niall says, I reckon we need about 15 points to get to Europe. Well, I think Newcastle can get the better of Manchester United. I think they'll probably be Brighton. There's 6. What are you laughing at?
No, I'm just wondering who you. Go on, give me the full list.
Sheffield United as well.
Got to beat Sheffield United.
So there's 9 points.
Well, let's get the fixtures up and let's rank them.
Because I mean, Man United are absolutely just horrendous. So Newcastle United have got to get the better of them. But
right, so Tottenham up on Saturday.
Yeah,
I think that'll be a draw.
Okay, I'll take a point there.
So we'll both go and draw.
Palace away. I mean, Palace haven't. I mean, I think Palace are looking over their shoulders, and then they're getting players back, aren't they, from injury? I say, but I'm going to go for Newcastle United win. I don't think it'll be pretty at all, but I'm going to go for Newcastle win there. No, you're not agreeing. I just think the way Newcastle are playing, they're playing so poorly. Yet there's just that encourages me that they're going to get Europe. That they're going to get 6th.
I'm going to go for draw against Palace away.
So 2 points. Okay. Newcastle versus Sheffield United.
Win.
Gotta be. Well, they showed some good stuff against Chelsea.
Honestly, Chelsea rattle me every week because how on earth did we lose twice to them at Stamford Bridge?
That's that keeps you awake.
They are just so awful. And yeah, I mean, so yeah.
Burnley away. Gotta be Newcastle win. Yeah. Brighton at home. Newcastle win. They're going unbeaten for the rest of the season.
Well, according to you, they are. Brighton are falling like a stone. I'll go win as well.
And Brentford on the last day of the season. I mean, they're in a bit of bother.
That's right. Hang on, I'm gonna have to change gonna have to change. Oh, and Man U. Sorry, did you say?
Yeah.
When it gets rearranged,
you have got them unbeaten.
No, they're not gonna. They can't go unbeaten. I'm sorry.
I don't see anything from Palace to frighten us. They haven't got that band.
Right. I think they're gonna suffer a narrow defeat at Palace.
Sheffield United could be the banana skin, you know.
They'll win. They'll beat Sheffield United. They'll beat Burnley. They'll beat Brighton at home. Yeah.
You're betting on going and beating at least at home, aren't you?
They'll draw against Brentford.
Just grab them.
You've got them a lot higher than me, but
I mean, look, on paper,
it's a good run-in. It is a good run-in.
Apart from Spurs, I mean, Spurs concede goals. On paper, Newcastle United should be taking the game to each and every one of these.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to change my prediction for this Saturday from draw to win because I've got a little stat for you.
Come on, then.
Newcastle's record against London clubs at home this season: Brentford 1-0 win, Palace 4-0 win, Arsenal 1-0 win, Chelsea 4-1 win, Fulham 3-0 win, and West Ham 4-3 win.
So they're like the London sides.
So they're going to beat Tottenham Saturday. You heard it here first.
Niall makes a good point. We haven't won 2 games in a row since November, so Newcastle don't tend to go on.
According to Andrew, they're going to win. Is that 5 in a row you had them winning after the draw against Tottenham?
Yeah.
So Niall records are there to be broken.
Exactly. Kind of first says we need players back to go unbeaten. Not many due back anytime soon. Wireman says is going for 11 points. Johnny says we'll lose to either Spurs or Man United, then get 1 point from the other. Beat Palace, Sheffield United, and Burnley, then 4 points from Brighton and Brentford. End with 14 points is what he predicts.
That sounds a lot more realistic, I think.
What can I say? I've had me Weetabix this morning.
Eternal optimist.
Yeah. I mean, how important is European football, do you think, for their transfer business? Just massive. In terms of we've had we've had the question there about being a big pull. I think that was linked to Bruno and his activity, but also potential incomings.
Look, they managed to have a very, very good transfer window, or 2 transfer windows, without European football, when they managed to get Trippier and Bruno in the first place. But I think now, given the competition that there will be out there for these big players that they want, trying to attract players of Tonali's ilk and all that without Champions League football is going to prove very, very tough. Yes, you can sell them the project and the dream, but that's so much easier if you've got a European competition to play in.
And would you, I think I asked this a couple of weeks ago, but I'll ask you again, would you bring Mincer back pre-season, give him a proper chance? Or because it's going so well, you send them back out on loan?
I think I'll be in the minority here, but I'm really tempted to say just let him stay at Feyenoord another season. He's came out yesterday after his really, really good performance in the 6-0 win and said, look, it's up to Newcastle, but I would like to stay here. Feyenoord want to keep him. He started really slowly over there, and it looked like it might have been a little bit of a dud of a move, but the last 3 months, since AFCON, really, he's been fantastic. So,
but we know the right wing is a priority for many.
But
do you risk splashing 60, 70 million? I'm going to have to maybe overly optimistic on a right winger. Is that not in a way maybe stunt the chances and development of Mincer?
No, not really, because in an ideal world, and look, sorry to Jacob Murphy and Miguel Almiron if they're listening, but in an ideal world, I think in 2 or 3 years' time, I would want a real out-and-out 50, 60 million pound player and a 20, 21-year-old Minter in behind filling in. I don't think, yes, but Minter is playing fantastic football out in Holland. I don't think there's any assurances that he comes and can do it in the Premier League, week in, week out, above Miggy and above Murphy. He's still very, very raw. Off the ball, he looks like he needs a lot of work. I think Eddie Howe will have a real job in his hands getting him Premier League ready. He's 19 years old. I know the temptation's there to bring him back, but let's just not rush it.
Sean says if money is an issue, Mincer has already bought and paid for. Johnny says you look at him in pre-season, definitely Premier League is still a massive step up.
It's a huge step.
If Bruno gets a yellow card against Spurs, of course, he just has to go that one game.
It's written in the stars, isn't it, that he gets booked against Tottenham.
We've got some party poppers, haven't we, somewhere in the office, big, massive ones, donated to us by Bongo's Bingo. I mean, we could set them off next Monday when he inevitably gets through the Spurs game.
Didn't we try to set them off last year and we got told off for you?
Yeah, apparently there's a fire risk. Today we can do it outside. We'll go to St James Park and set it off and do a big celebration because Bruno's got through. As Johnny says, Anthony was a world beater at Ajax, so I get your point. I did see something though interestingly, and this is before we got into the trivia, because Minter's now having a storm of a season, with Tonali coming back, fingers crossed Joe Linton signs a new deal, fingers crossed Bruno stays, you've got Elliot Anderson looking right at home in the sense that Sean Longstaff's probably not going to go anywhere. They might bring in a number 6 as well. Do you maybe send Lewis Meyer out on loan to Holland and let him have first team football out there? Or has he done enough to be around the first team?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? It feels weird to say because he's only had 1 season and he's only 17-year-old, but is that the right level for him, sending up to the Eredivisie when he's done so well in the Premier League? I don't know. But then at the same time, you wouldn't want to see him playing for another Premier League club.
I don't know. Would you not? I think my worry is, given everyone coming back and everything I've just mentioned there, the potential of a big money sign in the middle, how many opportunities will he get? Can you really say to him, just wait for the cup competitions or wait for the injuries?
But they had that with Elliot Anderson, and Howe said, I don't want to send him out again. He'll get his chance. And to his credit, before his back injury, I think he would have. So, look, I mean, Lewis Miley's suffering with an injury right now. They still don't know how long he's going to be out for. We might be talking about a situation where, he's not even fit by the summer. So
I think if there's you can never guarantee first team football, but if there's a chance of getting games and minutes under your belt, I don't think it'd be the worst deal because the alternative is him sitting, not getting any minutes of first team action.
Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I think when you see the last look, Yankuba Minter, I hate to say it, but he's the anomaly. He's the only loanee out there at the minute doing anything. Guan Kowal, bless him's at the other end of the Eredivisie, really struggling for the 2nd season in a row.
Well, here's a question for you. If you don't think the Dutch league is anything to write home about, where I'm at is I'd send them to Rangers or Celtic. Which is the better league? The Championship?
Oh, look, if he goes to a Rangers and Celtic, I don't think I'd be against
European
that. But
football, but then get a
um,
Feyenoord as well.
but yeah, I don't think the SPL as a whole is maybe the standard that we want to be sending them to.
And Johnny says Anderson was great when he came on against Fulham. He was
brilliant.
Looked like he made the difference. He's definitely been in the gym, and he looks more physical, and there's some lovely touches, and he really got a good eye for the ball.
Yeah, and the two things that I like about Anderson the most is that he's always asking for the ball, always
communicating,
always wants it, and when he does get it, he keeps it so well. And on Saturday we saw that little flash of brilliance with the little back heel to Harvey Barnes before the goal. Really, really good. Yeah, he was really impressive coming on, and he needs to be, because Longstaff's been off the boil. Joe Willock is potentially out again. Hasn't looked right the last couple of weeks. He really needs to step up, and he has been.
I think we'll see more opportunity for him. And you mentioned there,
well, we're going to have to.
Yeah,
he'll be
kicking himself, won't he? There, they managed to pick up that freak injury, because it would have been him ahead of Lewis Miley. So good to see him back now. We're going to get into the trivia. Aaron is a pen stealer. You already stolen me Spar pen, and now you had this one.
I don't know where your Spar pen is actually.
Right. Can you stop stealing pens, please? Goodness me. You had one of your own as well. Right. Anyway, trivia. Yeah. So I want you to name the top 10 Newcastle United players of this season who have played the most minutes of Premier League football.
Okay. We'll go Bruno.
Yeah. Do you want to have a little guess?
Am I going games or
minutes?
Minutes.
We'll go minutes.
I've got no clue. Sorry. I think he's played.
We can do games if you want.
Yeah, I'm sure. Was that not his 48th game of the season? That might be
Premier League.
Oh, Premier League.
Premier League only.
We've played 31. I think he missed. Has he played 29?
Oh no, sorry, wait there. We are doing all competitions. I just looked at the number.
All competitions. I think he's. Oh, that might be for country as well. I think he's played 43. Okay, I was going to say 45, so I'll go 43.
So he's played. There's a weird decimal point, but I think that's 3,729 minutes.
Okay.
So
I was going to say that, obviously.
Right.
We'll go. Gordon's going to be up there.
Yeah, he's third in the list. He's played 3,340 minutes. He's played 42 times this season.
Fabi Scher.
He's number 2 in the list. Played 3,644 minutes.
Dan Burn
is 6th in the list. He's played 2,801 minutes.
Sean Longstaff.
Okay, where do you reckon he ranks?
Quite high.
He's 4th.
Okay.
3,661.
So there's the 5 done. So now we're going to go to...
No, Dan Burn was 6th. So you're missing the 5th.
Oh, sorry. I just meant that was 5. 5 out of 10. 5th.
What does stand out here is that this team has got a strong core of players. The injuries obviously have kind of pushed that.
Miggy Almiron.
Yeah, he's 7th on the list.
Lewis Miley.
No.
Surely, come on.
No, he's not on that list.
What?
He's not in the list in terms of minutes played. I've got it. Yeah, he's not on the list.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not having that. Lewis Miley's played more than anyone in the midfield.
I will check it out.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe whichever website you've done doesn't realise that he's actually a senior player. Right. So okay, Miley. I could have sworn Miley would have been in there. Well, I tell you what, it's certainly not Lewis Hall. I'm gonna take a risk, right? No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm gonna say Isak.
Alexander Isak. Yes, he is 8th in the list. 2,387 minutes.
I'm gonna take a risk because I know he's only been playing since December, but I'm gonna say Dubravka.
Martin Dubravka, 9th in the list. 2,104 minutes.
Right. So how many do I need? 2.
2.
Okay. Kieran Trippier
in at number 5.
Flying.
3,005 minutes he's played.
So one more.
Centre back.
Jamal Lascelles, 1,921
minutes. And just to clarify, Lewis Miley, 1,729
okay.
minutes. So
Wow, I would have sworn that he'd been in there.
200 minutes less than Jamal Lascelles, who's number 10. It's funny that when you look at this list, and we've got it via transfer market, look at all the red crosses.
Yeah, injured.
Almiron, Lascelles, Pope, Botman, Miley, Joe Linton, Livramento, Callum Wilson, Sandro Tonali with a little no entry sign. Unbelievable. And right down the bottom, we'll just talk about Alex Murphy, 3 minutes of football.
Joe White, 3 minutes. Lars Karius, 90
minutes.
Ben
Paul
Parkinson,
Dummett, 195. Matt Ritchie, 214 minutes with one goal. But there you have it, ladies and gents. The frustration thing there. Elliot Anderson, only 657 minutes because of that injury. What might have been. But there you have it, the top 10 list of Newcastle United players who've played the most minutes this season in all competitions. This has been the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. Hit subscribe, hit follow, leave us a rating and review. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news. And for myself and Aaron, we'll see you guys very